Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our TPN Tax Talks webinar, Social Media on a Budget, where you will learn easy and effective tips for social media marketing that will work without sucking your time or giving you stage fright. Sorry, I had a typo in there. So no stage fright, no time lost. So I'm Gary Dehart, the publisher of Tax Practice News and the host of today's short webinar. Our speaker is Christine Gervais, who I will introduce after I cover our housekeeping items. Housekeeping, it's only a couple. There is no CPE for this. It's a 30-minute webinar, 30-minute plus or minus webinar. So no CPE. If you have any questions, we do ask that you just put them in the questions panel. And be specific with your question. Don't just say, what did you mean? Christine, what did you mean by X? Because she may not answer it as soon as you put the question into the chat or into the Q&A. We will send you a link to the recording. It will also be available on our YouTube channel typically within about 24 hours. I will also put that link in the chat once Christine takes over. And I will also put a copy of the slide deck into the chat once Christine takes over. So Christine is a licensed CPA. She's using her skills to help businesses grow and achieve their fullest potential. She has a master's degree in accounting, is working on her doctorate, and has held her CPA license for over a decade. She's a nationally recognized speaker, providing education to other CPAs on how to best serve clients, as well as instruction on a wide variety of topics for business owners on how to maximize success. She's also the co-owner and co-founder of Epiphany Consulting Group, which provides outsourced services and education to other CPA firms. With that, Christine, welcome. Thanks for taking 30 minutes or so to just to share your wisdom on social media with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. All right, let's see. Get set up here. The technical difficulties of getting the screen shared is always the hardest part. Okay, awesome. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. As Gary mentioned, if at any point you have questions, please feel free to pop them in that Q&A box and I will do my absolute best to answer them for you as we go. We are going to be talking about social media marketing on a budget today. So what that means is how to market your practice in a way that one is cost effective, but also to give you some tools that are going to save you on your time as well. This is certainly a topic where it's very easy to feel overwhelmed and not sure where to start. And so then classically, if you're anything like me, you just don't start at all. It becomes easy to hit that procrastination button. And then we're really losing out on the opportunity to showcase ourselves in our practice. So hopefully today you're walking away with some tools to help you kind of move that needle forward in terms of sharing your practice and what you have to offer on social media with your soon-to-be followers. Now, as Gary mentioned, we'll send out the slides. This will get recorded and put up on YouTube for you. And if you don't want to miss out on the recordings or any of our other future sessions, go ahead and scan that QR code and just make sure that you're subscribed. And I also, earlier this month, in case you wanted to read it in more in-depth, did an article on this same topic, kind of setting us up for what we're going to talk about today. So you can always go back and read that as well on the Tax Practice News site. Gary already introduced all of you to me. So I've run my own practice since 2016, and I am by no means a social media expert, but I can tell you that I have experimented with it quite a bit in my own practice, learning various forms of social media, testing them out, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And so a lot of that experience from my perspective as a practitioner, actually utilizing these tools is what I'm going to share with you today. So let's talk about social media because that's a very broad term. It can mean a lot of different things. And we are going to talk about some specific types or pieces of social media today. I'm going to focus on just a few for you that I think lend themselves a little bit better to our industry as opposed to some of the others. Now, you could go out on any of these and find just about anything now. You can go out on, Spotify and find a podcast on accounting, and that might be something that is in your future. You can certainly find on Pinterest budgets or cash flow templates that people have pinned on Pinterest. I'm not necessarily going to focus on those today. I'm going to kind of focus on the core that I think are a little bit more popular or in line with how we would share our practice. But suffice it to say that there really is no shortage of different ways and opportunities that you can share your practice and create, these types of marketing links and online presence for your organization in whatever manner you think is the best fit for you. And that best fit is also something we're going to talk about today in terms of how do you determine where you're going to put yourself out there, how you're going to put yourself out there, etc. And of course, all from the perspective of spending as little money as possible. So let's start with these kind of core. I have like some core 5 up here that I think lend themselves a little bit better to what I would say is the accounting and tax, industry in terms of our practice. LinkedIn, I think every one of us should be familiar with. If you're not, then this definitely needs to get highlighted and prioritized on your list in terms of where you're going to focus. LinkedIn is very business to business. So in terms of the content, I always anticipate seeing a lot more professional style content on LinkedIn. And especially if your practice works with other businesses, meaning you're not necessarily focused on like 1040 tax preparation or individual financial planning, those types of things. Even if you are, those will still lend themselves to LinkedIn. But that is a really very heavily business focused environment. Whereas you look at some of these other ones and, Twitter certainly can be depending on the type of following you create / who you follow. But LinkedIn, very heavily business focused. So that one should absolutely be a priority for everybody. And the rest of them, we're going to talk about like how you pick and choose what your focus is going to be. But each one of these really has a different style to them in terms of what makes the best content on each one of these media forms, as well as different demographics. So that's really important for us to have a conversation about just at the get-go of this. And I'm going to recommend that as part of your moving the needle forward or as part of your social media integration journey for your practice, I really recommend that you only focus on maybe 2 at a time. You really want to master not more than 2 of these before you start to try to figure out how you're going to grow a following or build your network on a 3rd or a 4th. And if you're going to dive into 3 and 4, I think that's definitely the tipping point where you need to consider whether or not you're going to work with someone either in-house or maybe contracted to be doing some social media management for you, because it can be extremely time consuming. And the thing with each one of these is that, what is successful in terms of content, meaning what is going to get the most views, where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, is different on each of these. And you really have to pay attention to what is doing well and what isn't, and focus on learning that specifically for each of these platforms in order for it to be worth your time. So in order to get all of that in on top of all of the other things that we're doing, running our practice and doing work for our clients, taking on more than 2 of these at a time, it's just going to be too time consuming. You're going to spread yourself too thin, and you're going to end up trying to master too many things at once, and you're not going to see the results that you really want to see from any of them. So LinkedIn, business to business focus. If you're not already there, definitely recommend that you focus on that one. Facebook, I think that this one can lend itself to business fairly well. And it really just depends on how you present your content and the demographic that you're looking for. Now, Facebook does tend to be a slightly older demographic, and I'm going to include myself in that. I remember when I was in college and Facebook still required you to have a .edu email address to join it. So this is definitely more of your millennial type demographic. So if that's something that is a good fit based off of your client base, then this might be one where you want to focus. Facebook also lends itself well to a variety of different types of content still, meaning sharing links to articles, posting pictures, video content, written content. Whereas some of the others, like Instagram is the next one that you can see that I'm going to talk about. Instagram is definitely something that you have to be willing to produce video content for. And it's a younger demographic. So you have to take the time to look at what demographic your ideal client is in. If it is a younger demographic and Instagram is something that you want to try to build your presence on, then that's something to consider, because the type of content you're going to have to develop is going to have to be very different than Facebook or LinkedIn. Written content isn't really consumed well on Instagram because of the way the platform is set up. It's very heavily focused on video content, so you have to be willing to develop that type of content. Jake, I see your question. How do you build a following on social media, and how do you determine the best keywords? How do people find your posts? Really super awesome questions. I'm going to try to address all three of these as we kind of move through here. So building the following and those keywords, we are going to talk about SEO management and the keywords that you want to make sure you incorporate into your content to ensure that it's being visible, and then how do people find your posts. So I'm really glad that you asked that, because we can talk about it now as we're looking at each one of these platforms. And the first kind of key point to that is that you want to make sure that regardless of which platform you set up here, that you're creating public accounts, and you're very often going to be making sure that those are business accounts. So you could be yourself on LinkedIn. Maybe you also create one for your practice that people can follow. Facebook, same thing. It could be yourself promoting your business on Facebook. You can create a business page for Facebook. Instagram, that one's harder. So Instagram, I think there's a little bit more of a division between personal and professional. And if you're going to consider Instagram, I highly recommend that you consider creating that Instagram profile as your practice rather than as yourself. And then Twitter, kind of same as LinkedIn and Facebook. I think you can do well as being yourself on Twitter as opposed to presenting yourself as your business page. There's nothing wrong with it being your profile. And then you just kind of have to be aware of the content that you're posting. YouTube, similar to Instagram, you have to be willing to generate video content for that. So if you're someone that is just immediately like, I don't want to produce any video content, I don't want to be recorded, I don't want to make videos, I'm not comfortable doing that, then I would say Instagram and YouTube are probably two that you can cross off your list, and I would focus on one of the other three. So what I'm starting to help you try to understand is, we've got a lot of different components here. One of those components is, where are you going to find your ideal client? Another one of those components is, where are you comfortable creating content? And because that content is going to vary, you have to really know which content is going to do better on which platform. And answering these questions is going to help give you a better focus in terms of, which one of these are you going to actually pay the most attention to. Twitter, I think, can be a huge mix in terms of demographic, that you've got a huge age range, as well as just different types of backgrounds that you're going to be seeing on Twitter. That's probably a bigger mix than some of the others. And your content there is just going to be heavily dependent on really the type of profile that you're trying to create. So let's kind of move through some of this, and I'll try to answer some of these questions as specifically as possible in terms of how to gain that following, how to make sure that people are seeing your posts on each one of these. So we talked about finding out, like, what are your content strengths? So again, if you feel more comfortable in writing, then you probably want to cross off some of these platforms that are going to be more video heavy. If you feel comfortable doing video recordings, even short recordings, because keep in mind that Instagram, you're looking for that to be under 60 seconds, under 30 seconds is even better. 15 seconds is kind of your ideal. That's a short content, like short video platform, and you're not going to have people's attention for very long. If you're comfortable creating that type of content, that's a great place for you, just because it's going to lend itself so well to that. If you're more comfortable with something in writing, I think that things like LinkedIn and Facebook are better spots for you because, as I mentioned, they lend themselves better to longer written content, but also they present links to other places better, meaning that they appear more easily and able to be clicked on by your following on those platforms. Twitter also does a good job with this. And so if you are able to create blog posts, for example, that you can put up onto your website, and then you're able to consistently share those blog posts, you could share them on places like Facebook, places like LinkedIn, Twitter, and that's going to direct people back to your website. So that's a really great way to develop content in kind of a more professional manner, like some of us might be used to, and instead of feeling like we have to be taking like selfies in order to develop our social media content. Now, I can tell you, because I've seen them, there are plenty of people out on Instagram, even TikTok, doing these short content videos from a professional accounting perspective. And we're going to talk about adding value in a couple of minutes. But if that's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to just try and find some other people to follow for inspiration to see what they're doing. But someone coming on and even talking about the mileage deduction for 15 to 30 seconds in terms of what do you need to keep for documentation to take a mileage deduction. If you can talk about that for 15 to 30 seconds, which is not a long period of time, you are more than capable of creating a short video content that could go up on any one of these platforms. So as you're thinking about where your demographic is, what platform are they most likely to be found on? You can also think about, where am I the most comfortable developing content? If it's short videos, any type of video content, and you have a younger demographic, definitely consider something more like Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok if you want to try that. And if you're looking at a demographic that might be a little bit more business to business, it might be a demographic that's a little bit older that still is into reading articles that are a little bit longer, then that's going to lend itself better to things like LinkedIn and Facebook. So helping you to kind of stay organized, because again, this can get extremely overwhelming. I highly recommend that regardless of which platform you decide that you're going to work with, that you build yourself a social media calendar. This is going to help you with a couple of different things. One, it's going to help you stay consistent. And I'm going to tell you right now that consistency is the name of the game across all social media, regardless of what platform you choose to work with. It is incredibly important that you post on a regular basis. You cannot throw up one post on one of these platforms and expect that you're going to have results from that, meaning that you're going to automatically generate more leads than you know what to do with, and you're not going to need to put up another post for another 6 months. I think that most people don't realize how quickly the content is consumed on social media. For example, let's just take Facebook for a second. About 80% of your friends that you're connected to on Facebook will actually never see your Facebook content. The 20% of people on Facebook that do see your Facebook content are the people that you interact with on a more regular basis, meaning it's going to be people whose profiles you're looking at, whose pictures you're commenting on. And that tends to be our friends and our family. It's the people that are closest to us. And the point of the content that you're going to be developing for your business is that you want it to be seen by people who don't necessarily know who you are. And so in order to do that and make sure that more of your following is seeing your content more consistently, you have to post more consistently. I always tell people, if you feel like you're posting just a little bit too much, you're probably posting exactly the right amount. And very rarely do any of us actually feel like we're posting too much, which means you're probably not posting enough. Not enough people are seeing your content because it's not out there consistently enough. So you really have to make sure that you have a good foundation to help you get into a habit of posting consistently on a regular basis. A calendar is a great way to do that because it helps take some of that writer's block or that creative block off the table for you. And the way that I would normally create one of these content calendars is I would just kind of sit down month by month and start thinking about a general theme for each month of the year to start. So January might be something like you're going to focus on content around 1099s or closing your year end in preparation of tax season. Whereas if you look at like the month of October, you might focus on year-end tax planning already. Like, you're closing out those extended returns. The fourth quarter is starting. So now we're going to kind of focus our content on how to start planning for the end of the year and getting organized and doing that tax planning. So looking at each one of those, I think that social media calendars can also be fed by things like national holidays, local events that are happening. Like if you have something that happens in your local community in the month of July and you want to incorporate that into your social media calendar, all of these are creative ways to try to pick like a theme of the month or a theme of the week. Doing that is going to help give you some structure in terms of creativity. So then when it gets to be July, you don't have to go, oh goodness, like what am I going to post about? And what inevitably happens is if you don't immediately have ideas, we put it on the back burner until we do, and then you're not getting that content consistently up. So this calendar is just going to provide you that structure in terms of helping you to develop what is going to be what the content that you're putting up for this particular month. Some tech tools to help you also, because again, this can be extremely time consuming. And then here also is where I'm going to talk about some ways that you can funnel people back to your website and that you can make some of this technology work for you. So if you have not used ChatGPT yet, it's an incredible tool. Artificial intelligence is definitely a hot topic right now. If you don't already have it on your calendar, make sure you save the date September 26th and September 27th for our next Future Forward event. So I am going to be talking about how to use AI in your practice during that 2-day event. It is virtual, so just go ahead and save the date on your calendar and you can get hooked up and registered for those events and get some more information. But ChatGPT offers a lot of opportunity to do some business writing for you. And one of the things it can do is it can develop content for you. It could write blog posts for you. It can write Instagram posts for you. And so all you have to do is learn how to prompt it for what you're looking for. So for example, we're going into August. We run a tax practice and August is traditionally one of our slowest months of the year, but I'm going into September and October, and I want to remind all of my clients that have extended returns out there that they need to get their extensions done. And with that, any prospective clients who maybe still don't have their extensions done from their accountant from last year and are a little frustrated with how long it's taking. So that is a great opportunity for me to theme my post for the month of August and try to appeal to some new prospective clients. And I can go into ChatGPT and I can say, write me a 50-word post for Instagram to help attract new tax clients that are feeling frustrated with how long it's taking for their current tax return to be prepared, just as an example for you. And it will actually spit out a post, a sample post for me to use based off of the parameters that I just gave it. So if you're definitely someone that struggles in terms of creativity or you get writer's block when you have to do things, that tool is something that can help you a lot. You can schedule posts as well. So Hootsuite and Zoho are two apps that you can use that will actually schedule your social media posts for you. Meaning if I want to sit down on Monday and do all of my social media content for the week, I could do that in an hour. I can schedule it and I can tell these apps, I want it to post to this platform at this time on this day. And then you can kind of set it and forget it. I will tell you that in terms of, because I know we got this question, how do you make sure that you get people to see your content? I will tell you that most of the social media platforms tend to push down some of the posts that are posted by app schedulers, meaning the way that people see your content, it's based off of a bunch of different factors, but one of them is that it's organically generated and posted content. So I'm not discouraging you from using these schedulers because they are a huge help, especially in terms of running, very busy practices and not having a lot of time throughout the week to stop what you're doing to do social media posting. But just kind of keep that in mind. If you're using one of these consistently and you're not seeing the results that you want to see in terms of interaction and visuals, like people looking at these posts, consider posting them organically for a while. And then when we start talking about SEO and Google Ads, that's one of the ways that it can also help boost your visibility. Google Ads, since we're talking about this on a budget, they're obviously a little bit more pricey than advertising that you could potentially run on social media sites. But when we talk about search engine optimization, and Jake had asked about these keywords, that's something that you really need to think about in any of the content that you're developing is who is my prospective client and what are they searching for that's going to lead them to me? If my ideal client is a multi-business owner, maybe it's a high net worth individual that owns a couple of different businesses and maybe some real estate, and that's the client that I'm looking for. Where is that person on the internet? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Are they on any of these platforms? What are the things that they're Googling in terms of their accountant that's going to lead them to me? Are they Googling real estate accountant? Are they Googling, CPAs near me? So you have to kind of get into the mind of the ideal client for your practice in order to figure out what those keywords are. If I'm a tax practice, I'm not looking to attract clients to me that are looking to have audited financial statements or vice versa. So that's important too, is that you really want to define what it is that you're looking for as much as you want to define what it is that you're offering. And that's going to help you determine what are the keywords that are right for you to be using. MailChimp is another great opportunity to kind of connect a lot of these things together. So if you're sending out like a newsletter, you can also have that be automatically posted to places like your Facebook business page. So if I sent a new newsletter out this week, I can post a link right to my Facebook business page that says, here's our newsletter for the month of July. Feel free to click on the link and read it. So I always look for ways in social media to drive prospective clients also back to our website. So if that is in the form of posting a blog post article, I'm going to first make sure that it goes up on our website. And then when I share it on social media, that link is going to come back to our site versus other places. So you want that type of continuity in terms of how prospective clients are seeing you and finding you. And then when you're thinking about advertising, again, you want to think about your ideal demographics. You don't want to be advertising to a demographic that isn't the right fit for you. So you want to just incorporate these keywords. You want to put those ads out on platforms that make sense. If it makes sense to do a little bit of paid advertising, like boost your posts on social media, that's usually a really cheap form of advertising. But again, just make sure that you're on the right platform with the right call to action. And so when I say call to action, and this goes to your content too, you have to develop your content in a way that obviously is going to attract potential clients to you. So the way that you can do that is you can add value or solve problems. So I used the example earlier about what type of documentation do I need to keep in order to take a mileage deduction? You can look at your current list of clients and you can say, what are some of the problems or the questions that I'm being asked or asked to solve on a regular basis? What are the most frequent issues that our clients are talking about, complaining about, asking about? If you can give little snippets of those in your blog posts, in your videos, I talked about doing a 15 to 30-second video explaining the type of documentation that someone would need to take in order to claim the mileage deduction. That is a perfect example of what I'm talking about here. You've solved the problem for someone, and now you just need to bring them back to you, to your website. So in your video, you might give 15 to 30 seconds of tips of how to document your mileage deduction. And then you want to make it clear how they get in touch with you to get more information or to get more of their problem solved. So if this video was helpful for you, please feel free to hit follow. If this doesn't answer all of your questions, this is how you can connect with us. If you're looking to receive a free quote on preparation for your income tax return, this is how you can contact us. You want to make sure that there's a finisher on all of your content that is going to tell them what is their next step. And again, all of this focusing on your ideal client. So I gave you some tax focus examples, but if you're not preparing tax returns, you're going to have to think, what are the problems that are specific to my clients? And then you're going to create those little problem solving teasers as part of your content and make sure that you're telling them at the end of your article, video, etc., what is their next step? How do they find you? How do they contact you? What do you want them to do next? Do you want them to follow you, like the post, or contact you? And just a couple of quick things that you can use to implement this in your practice. You could do content takeover days, meaning you could have your team come on to some of your social media platforms and be responsible for the content on that day. That's a really fun way to incorporate some of your other team members. Assign them blog posts to write once a month so that you get some varying perspectives. Definitely want to track your KPIs, meaning whatever platform you choose to look at, you want to look to make sure that your following is increasing on a monthly basis, that the posts that you're putting up are being viewed, that you're getting some visibility, that you have some interaction. In other words, are you seeing the results that you want to see? How many new clients came in this month, found you on social media? And you're going to kind of gauge your performance from there. And then look at setting some automation and some tech tools up to help to cut down on the amount of time that you actually have to spend focusing on just your social media development. So I will leave that open for questions for just a few minutes. I know that we're already a few minutes over 12:30, but we'll hang out for questions for you for just a minute. I'll keep my eye on the box, and I will also leave my contact information up here. So if there's anything that you think of that did not get answered for you, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. Jake, hopefully I touched on all of those questions for you, at least a little bit in terms of how to get started with social media. So awesome. I don't see any open questions.
I have one.
Okay.
Hey, so you mentioned, kind of winding back, you mentioned if you're using a tool like Zoho, which we do use that to post, what run back on that again. I mean, you basically said if you're not seeing the results, because we're not really seeing the results that we want to or would expect to see with the consistency that we're putting content out there.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the way that most of these platforms work, and I don't want to say all of them because I don't know that to be factually accurate, but the way most of them work is that the algorithm is set to give a higher preference, if you will, to organically posted content. Meaning I, Christine, took out my cell phone and I went to my Facebook business page and I typed out or I copied, pasted, or I developed a piece of content and I hit post. The algorithm knows when we are using a third-party app to schedule those posts for us. And they tend to push the preference of those posts down to be lower in the algorithm versus higher. So they, again, super helpful because they do save us so much time. I can't possibly think about posting on multiple platforms multiple times a day. But again, like you said, if you're not seeing the results that you want to see, switching to organic posting for a while might help. And so the way that I manage that is I will literally just set reminders on my calendar throughout the week, so it might be Monday at 3, but Wednesday at 9, and then Thursday at 12, kind of depending, and then playing around with those times. It could be the time too. Like, I don't know what time you had the app set to, but sometimes we're kind of setting it and forgetting it in the app. And there's higher and lower social media content, higher and lower people present and viewing content on these platforms at different times of day. Like
Right.
Sunday night between 8 and 10 p.m. is a huge social media content consuming time. So sometimes just playing around with the time of day and the day of the week that you're having things post can help too.
All right. Well, there we go. I learned something. Now the next step is to actually do it, right? Is to implement.
Yes. Yeah. And we do have one more quick question for Jake. Still not really sure how we get new eyes on the post and how to get them engaged enough to become followers. Yes, absolutely. So that's where it comes to one, making sure that you have a publicly set profile. So on any of these platforms, whether you're there as yourself or you're there as the business being the profile, it absolutely 100% needs to be public. Otherwise, you will never have new eyes getting on these. And then two, if you're developing content that is either adding value or solving the problem, those are great ways to get new eyes on there, because that's the type of content that will get the most interaction, especially if it's a problem that a lot of people have. And something I didn't mention, but I do think is very valuable, is hashtags will work across almost every platform. And so hashtags is another great way to get your content to be more viewed, because somebody could be maybe searching for the hashtag like tax tips instead of searching for CPAs near me, and you might come up, your post might come up because you hashtagged tax tips, and they weren't necessarily otherwise going to find you.
Yeah, I think maybe one other thing that you could leverage as well is, if you know 2 people or 4 people or 8 people, who are active on social, tag them as well. And
or ask them
or,
to comment on your
yes.
content as well. So yeah, if you have a couple of people, like you said, tagging them or asking them to just pop in and comment on your content, so hey Susan, I just threw up a new blog post, do you mind just taking 2 minutes and commenting on it? Because anytime that you can get people to help generate that interaction, it's going to help boost that higher on the list for your content to be visible to others as well.
Yeah. And so I think that's 2 good parting tips there. Is that, whoa, somebody else popped something in. Is that new or just, oh, there we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, yeah, very interesting. Yes, George. I can tell you that growing up without social media, this has definitely been quite the education that I've received as well. And a lot of it is really just trial and error. You're going to try things that just don't work. But unlike maybe some other places in our business, social media is one that it does take longer for things to work. You need a longer period of time of being consistent to see the results. So if something's not working, don't be too quick to change your methodology. Try to be consistent, I would say, for at least a couple of months before you're jumping ship on something.
And the best thing to do would be to outsource it to somebody else.
Yes.
That's my preferred method.
Less budget friendly, Gary, but
it is less budget friendly, but it frees up a lot of time to not have to deal with or worry about or think about what do I have to do. We certainly have content, right? We've got plenty of content. Yep. And until we had somebody dedicated and focused on ensuring that this is pushed out on a regular basis, it didn't happen primarily because I really don't enjoy doing it. And, we all have 100 things to do in a day. Pushing something on social media is not at the top of my list. So once we brought somebody on board, actually outsourced it, got that consistency, we're certainly seeing all of our numbers going up. But I really appreciate what you said about the Zoho or the auto posting tools. We need to tweak that and see if that impacts it. So, all right. Well, without further delay, thank you, everybody. It is lunchtime. I'm going to go eat something. Hopefully there's something in the refrigerator. So everybody have a great week. Have a great weekend. Oh, you know what? We had one thing we wanted to pitch, and that is, if you're not familiar with it, Insightful Accountant hosts 3 times a year an online webinar series. It's basically 2 days in September this year. We're doing September the 26th and 27th, I think was the dates. Yep. Christine is one of the speakers. Primary topics are AI, advisory, and analytics. So if you'd like to make sure we get some information over to you on that, just say yes in the chat there or in the poll. We will be sure to get some information to you. Again, it's September. Again, I think it's the 26th, 27th. We do 4 webinars a day. You can sign up for all of them. You can sign up for one of them. It's just once we start promoting it, you'll be able to see when you register, you'll be able to see here's the 8 topics, and I want to do session 2, 5, and 8, whatever. Or you can sign up for all of them. So we will get that information over to you. Again, Christine, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for taking some time out of your day to learn a little bit about social media. Now we all have work that we have to go do on social media, thanks to Christine. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.